Hello, Math 2. This is Mrs. Bricky, and this is Unit 8, Lesson 3. This is Part A video. There'll be a Part B video for the second half of the lesson. During Part A, we will be reviewing solving with roots. So a couple tips here for solving with roots. When you're solving a quadratic equation with roots or by using a root method, remember that there are two solutions. Ooh, that's not a pen. Two solutions to these equations. You're going to start by isolating whatever is squared. And then when you root both sides of an equation, don't forget to use your plus or minus symbol to help you get those two solutions that I talked about. So here is our first equation. It's a quadratic equation because it has this x squared term in it. And our goal is to solve for x. So trying to get the square by itself, whatever is squared, we want to get by itself. And in this equation, only the x is squared. So I'm going to start by subtracting 4 from both sides of my equation. So that leaves me on the left side with 7x squared. And 172 minus 4 gives me 168. So still trying to get that x squared by itself. So I'm going to now divide both sides of my equation by 7. So on the left, we just have our x squared. And on the right, we need to divide that 168 by 7, which gives us 24. So at this point, to isolate the x, we're ready to use the square root on both sides of our equation. And whenever you apply a root to both sides of your equation, you need to include a plus or minus symbol to cover both your positive and your negative solution. So we have x is equal to positive and negative root 24. And the square root of 24 is simplifiable, so x is equal to positive and negative 2 root 6. And those are the two answers. Remember that that plus or minus symbol is just shorthand. It's meaning that we have 2 root 6 as our answer and negative 2 root 6. So we just use it as shorthand so that we don't have to write those two separately. Okay, this equation, it looks a little bit different because it has a binomial in it, but you are just going to isolate whatever is squared. So we want to get that x minus 2 squared by itself. So in this case, we want to start by dividing both sides of our equation by 3. That leaves us with x minus 2 squared is equal to, and 90 divided by 3 is 30. We have our square isolated, so now we're going to apply the square root to both sides of our equation. Don't forget your plus or minus symbol when you do that. So now we have x minus 2 equals plus and minus root 30. Now root 30, if you throw that into your calculator, it does not simplify, so we're going to leave that root as is. We're trying to solve for x, so we have one last step to do, and that step is that we have an x minus 2, so we need to add 2 to both sides of our equation. Now, if we add 2 to a root 30, those two numbers don't really combine. I mean, we could turn them into a decimal approximation, but we can just leave it written out like 2 plus or minus root 30. And again, that plus or minus symbol is just shorthand for 2 plus root 30 and 2 minus root 30. And if we wanted to, we could get our decimal equivalences for each of these. 2 plus root 30 is approximately 7.48, and 2 minus root 30 is approximately negative 3.48. But, it's not necessary for you to turn these into decimals. You can just state your answer exactly as 2 plus or minus root 30. All right, one more of these to try out. So we have x minus 6 squared minus 43 is equal to 38. So our square is right here. We're trying to isolate that. So we're going to add 43 to both sides of our equation. X minus 6 squared is equal to 38 plus 43 is equal to 81. So we have our square isolated, so we are ready to apply the square root to both sides of our equation. Don't forget your plus or minus symbol. The square root of x minus 6 squared is just x minus 6, and the square root of 81 is 9. So we have x minus 6 is equal to positive and negative 9. Now we want to keep going, and we need to get that x by itself. I think it's a good idea to split your equation right now into two separate equations. We have x minus 6 is equal to positive 9, and x minus 6 is equal to negative 9. So I used my plus and my minus to separate it into two equations. Each of those I'll solve now by adding 6. So my first equation leads me to x equals 15, and my second equation leads me to x equals negative 3. So there are my two answers. It's pretty challenging when your root is a perfect square like this to get to those two answers. So my advice would be to just split it into the two equations right after you take that root. All right, so practice up. Let us know if you have questions or need any additional help with this. Thank you.